As we mentioned, Root and Kellen are going to retain their spot. If you're joining us late, Grace did not play in game number 1, but would be preferred to Chongo in game number 2.
Yeah, we've actually seen this iteration of Jin Air so far. Saw it, I think, once or twice in the Kesper Cup out of the 4 games that they actually played. See whether the change-up of just the bottom lane as far as the expected roster is going to be what is going to get Jin Air over the line. Of course, very happy to flex almost everyone around. Feels like it's just Linderung that feels like he's locked in his position with a little bit of better play. As Cassiopeia is going to be the next ban here for SKT and Jace to follow through. Jin Air really focusing, it looks. On the top side of the map, is Aurelia going to be the final ban up against Faker there?
You wouldn't really feel like there was a champion you had to ban from the side of SKT if you were Jin Air, and that's despite losing pretty one-sidedly after the game started getting going. So it felt like maybe an adjustment to your strategy around mid-jungle was probably the big thing you wanted to see. They banned the Victor just to try to put Khan on a different type of comfort in this particular game. So Victor and Jace, maybe even the Aurelia could all be top-side bans.
Aatrox.
The side of SKT. The Aatrox is left open, and we saw jungle Aatrox be played so well by Tarzan in the Kesper Cup. It is also a flex pick between those solo lanes, so it'd be a surprise not to see it taken by Jin Air.
Yep. Also, I think most played in solo queue for Linderung at the moment. It's been a hot minute since I checked his OPGG, so forgive me if I'm a little bit wrong, but certainly has been playing a hell of a lot of Aatrox. So Khan, what does he have as an answer? Of course, Grace could potentially flex that into the mid lane. You say very flexible champion, but could be on the whole top side of the map.
Aurelia, Aatrox, Akali, Ryze, Urgot. Basically playing the meta.
Yes.
Is Linderung, and could just be Aatrox versus Ryze, a very common matchup we saw in a lot of Challengers play and also towards the end of the 2018 season. But Ryze top lane, again, amusing in that VOD review where he was losing out pretty handedly to the Faker Jacks in the top side with the Halo Blades. Halo Blades first gank, very successful. Love to see some more Halo Blades come through on someone in game number 2 of this first series of LCK Spring 2019. The Urgot's up. The Urgot will be taken by SKT.
Yeah, now that is true flex as well. Of course, it's weird to see Ryze picked on a team with Faker on it, and it's not Faker that's definitely playing the Ryze. But like you say, certainly flexible towards the top side of the map. If solo queue that I've been looking at has anything to say, it's Teddy could be potentially playing it on the bottom side as well. A lot of people foregoing the 80 carries, but not so far in competitive play from what we've seen from the LPL and here so far in the LCK.
A lot of hovering over the Draven, but the Kai'Sa priority that was pretty clear from the LPL teams is still here. For Jin Air Green Wings at least, Kai'Sa's being taken first round over in China quite a lot. Even though there's so many matchups into Kai'Sa that can work. You see Sivir, you see Vayne, you see the old school and the new school. You can just go for Ezreal, as we saw in game number 1. So fingers crossed, we'll see something a bit more spicy come through as Jin Air say, okay, we're going to sack the laning phase to some degree again. They can ban bot lane champions because SKT can only claim half a bot lane here. But they will be returning to what didn't work, you'd have to say, in the Kai'Sa Rakan.
I feel like the jungle Aatrox would be absolutely fantastic here from Jin Air, just based on where they've managed to pick him in the draft. And Malrung does just seem to me like an Aatrox player. You know, he is the guy that likes to dash around, do a lot of damage, but Tahm Kench going to be locked in here. No surprises on the side of SKT that Marta is going to be picking up that champion once again. Rotations, rotations, rotations. And
I like the choice because you wanted Ezreal Tahm Kench the moment you saw the enemy duo lane locked in, but you can't get both of them in the first round. The Ezreal is more replaceable because Kai'Sa has so many different matchups that work into her. As I was just mentioning, the Sivir, for example, can plug and play in pretty similar fashion. So because of that, the Tahm Kench is the unique variable of the Ezreal Tahm that you can definitely claim. They take the Tahm, they'll deal with 80 carry bans if that's the way Jin Air wants to go. So far, liking what SKT has done, even if it isn't the most explosive, like we mentioned in game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess, is the aim of the game. As Ezreal is going to be banned away here, predictably, like you say, but does take up a ban slot, meaning that they can't get rid of anything else. Lee Sin probably would have been a priority, but then if they ban that away, things like the Xin Zhao do become an option here for Clid.
I think you're fine.
Even the Sejuani, like you were talking about.
But I think you're fine seeing Malrung on Xin Zhao. You might say, okay, maybe the 1v1, maybe the 2v2 we have to be a bit more set up for, but SKT are going to be super trained and super ready, super polished when it comes to judging those scenarios. And the amount of mobility you have on Lee Sin is so powerful that you can reposition. You can choose to farm or go for creative engages. So I actually really like Ezreal Lee Sin as the 2 bans here because you're happy enough to see a Xin Zhao on the other side, therefore you're not happy to see the Lee. Will we see Teddy pull the trigger, though? There's a lot of different matchups into Kai'Sa.
Yep, and he's cycling through about all of them, so let's not get too excited too quickly, as there we go. Okay, Varus is going to be locked in, and it's probably the least interesting about all of the ones.
It's the lane buster
showing
choice.
us.
It's
yeah.
Ezreal, but with even more in terms of the standard 2v2 laning phase, so just looking for laning power here. SKT just taking the small wins everywhere. They're not going for big, bold plays. They're taking the percentage wins, the low-risk, high-reward plays. And now Jin Air, will they return once again to hard engage? They have to be more on point in the mid-game. They're going to try to recreate the draft that did not work in game number 1.
Well, the Galio player has been replaced, but the Galio has not. So Grace is going to be the one picking up that one. Kellen, what is he going to get? We'll find out whether that Aatrox is going to be in the jungle or in the top lane. With this final pick, 10 seconds to go for Malrung and Linderung to show their hand as Sion's picked up, so it will be the Aatrox jungle, keeping that Ultra Flex until the very last pick.
But keeping everything else the same, Jin Air trying to make their execution the unique variable between game 1 and game number 2, and maybe just getting a bit more confidence in the mid lane. Coming through from Grace. We talked about the piggy in the middle, we talked about the Sejuani, and we're definitely let down in game number 1. Sejuani jungle, just going for a tank frontliner here. So likely to be a carry build onto the Varus, not likely to be a Comet Varus if you're going to be going for the strong frontline. And man, is there a frontline that is 4 off tanks or pure tanks and a Varus.
Yeah, that is just completely ridiculous. As far as get behind Teddy, which is certainly the aim of the game whenever you see Teddy on the Rift, this is a way to do it. And we've seen Varus be such a hyper carry as well. Look back to Ruler and his orb walking with his Hurricane and so much attack speed. Really does have a lot of power.
But these are really, really interesting team comps coming out here based on how the game will play out. I'm sure there's Resident Sleepers in the chat. But what I want to point out here is SKT have gone for kind of a one threat. Yes, Rise the threat too, but largely this comp is about Teddy's damage in team fights. You can appreciate the enemy has a lot of backline threat. Rakan can go past the front line. Galio can join him. So the way that SKT wins fights is they get Urgot ults. The Urgot ult here, when the enemy team is going to be piling on, you're basically going to see 5 champions basically on top of each other with Jin Air trying to kill the Varus. The Fear Beyond Death Fear is actually the most important ability to draw your attention to in every team fight, because it should be hitting 4 and 5 men, and it should be the space and peel allowing the Varus to pop off.
And what I want everyone to look at as well, if you're looking over the Jin Air side, is what Grace is going to do differently to Chongo in this game. Will he be able to show us that he is the better Galio player, and will these heroic entrances actually be where we need them in order to get these team fights working? Because we know the composition can work. We know that it's pretty easy just to like press your R buttons and go in, and the laning phase didn't go badly at all.
But the Camille's not there to make it guaranteed, and you have to get through that laning phase to make sure you're not too far behind in gold to make that a mute point.
Well, we're going to find out right now. On to the Rift for game number 2. Having a bit of a zoom in onto Faker there, but great to hear from the fans. Still a lot of raised voices for Jin Air. Bit of a skin change here for Root, wanting to make sure he gets away from game number 1. It's one way to shake the demons off your back, you know? You just change your skin, you're like, I'm playing a different champion, it's a different game, different world, we're all fine.
Some players, honestly, from mental resets, need to change their champion, right? They might say, okay, had the Kai'Sa game, it didn't work, give me something new. So just the fact that he's happy to sit with the scouting report, because clearly Jin Air are saying Kai'Sa comps are what's working for us in solo queue. They've gone for 4 out of 5 of the same champions, even with a change in the lineup. This is clearly how Jin Air think they'll put their best foot forward, so we'll see if their mid-game execution, remember they made some good moments. Malrung's gank on the top side started the snowball, but their failed dive bot as the Rift Herald ended the laning phase top was what won the game for SKT. That level of a mistake from Jin Air, and history will probably repeat itself.
Well, bit of a solo start here from Clid on the top side of the map as our first minions are going to spawn. Malrung is going to very, very quickly take the popcorn chickens and give in a pretty beautiful leash here from his bottom lane as well. So speed clearing for the Aatrox. Faker bullying once again, doesn't matter what the nameplates say.
Just like we saw from Tarzan, it is Aftershock on the jungle Aatrox. What we saw, my biggest takeaway from Aatrox, who doesn't have that much life sustain in his kit, especially not to his ultimate comes online, all the healing is there from his abilities, is that he stays very topped up in health, Aatrox. Even with the 10% reduction in damage to monsters on his Q, you still clear the jungle very, very healthily. You see level 4 full health Aatroxes who haven't shopped, which lets you know that you are very, very sustained in the jungle. And once Aatrox hits his item spikes, gets enough AD, which you get plenty of with Warrior Enchant, you're pretty beastly in the skirmishes as well.
Yeah, being able to pick up Warrior Enchant as an Aatrox is why we saw him with Smite in the mid lane.
Yep.
It's because that item is so incredibly good. You are probably the biggest advocate for the old Warrior Enchant. It's a beautiful one.
Definitely very gold efficient. We are on 9.1 rather than the 8.24 of Kesper Cup, so the Monster Hunter debuff is back.
Yes.
So mid lane Smite is gone again. We never saw it in the Kesper Cup, and I'm happy not to see it in the LCK, but just a bit of bookkeeping for those of you who haven't been poring over the patch notes as close as some of us.
Yeah, exactly. Wondering why there are no Smites there in the mid lane. We were wondering at Kesper Cup almost equally, to be honest, when that was an option and was all over solo queue like a rash, but glad to see that it wasn't there because it does make things a little bit weird.
After Khan gets his tier and mana issues go out the window a little bit, there may also be a lot of pressure coming from the side of SKT. 2v2, they have a huge lead bot side when it comes to the Varus here and the dueling. Faker will also be able to push out Galio from time to time, but we're starting a turret dive on Khan.
Yep, and Khan actually moving the wrong way here. Does get the speed up from the passive, but slowed down once again. Clid, great positioning. He's going to be able to be there for the counter gank, but Grace not going to pull the trigger.
Doesn't even get greedy for the demolish proc either, does Linderung, so doesn't actually walk up. They know Sejuani's there for a counter gank top side, so a lot of members' time wasted, but no gains picked up by the side of Jinu.
But that is experience advantage, CS advantage. Linderung actually getting a fair bit out of that, making sure that Khan can't farm out that wave under turret. Speaking about under turret, almost halfway towards the first turret plating proc for Teddy here on the bottom side of the map.
And some of us surprised that we're seeing things like Kai'Sa and Rakan. We've always said a couple of times, pretty weak in the 2v2, will heavily lose out in trades to the Varus Tahm Kench to some degree, the Ezreal Tahm Kench that we saw in game number 1, is the introduction of those turret plates, because inevitably we're expecting the turret plates to be cashed in again and again on the side of the Varus. Already, they are 2/3, 3/4 of the way to 1, and it does depend on where the enemy jungler is at and vision of the enemy jungler, but as that starts to solidify, we still got 10 minutes to cash in turret plates, and that's the extra cost of picking a losing 2v2, is that the enemy comes away with even more of an item advantage than they did purely from CS.
And I got a little bit trolled by Teddy just there as well, because he bought 2 long swords and a dagger, making me think of a Storm Razor, which is probably not what he's going to purchase. Blade of the Ruin King still builds out of all of those items. Atlas, you silly boy.
Blade of the Ruin King into the Rage Bait is the most expected choice, but don't, throw every other permutation out the window.
You can't count your chickens. I mean, I guess there is one, technically, if we were going to count our chickens. It's on your screen right now, but can't count them before they hatch.
And our BBQ chickens aren't there to be counted anymore, as they are now in challengers.
No, we still have one.
That's true.
Potentially on the caster desk.
That's
it's
right.
Not here today.
But the adage isn't count your chicken before they hatch. There's more than one in the story.
Oh, that's true. We need to get a couple of them. As Malrung still farming things out, and like you said, Papa Smithy, still very healthy. Has gone back once. Skirmish Saber and a longsword picked up on his way towards that Warrior Enchant, but Clid, he's on a Sejuani. Still very happy just to farm things out. Barmy Cinder was his first back option, so a little bit more speed in that jungle there as well. Finally, our junglers will cross paths, but it's just Clid eating himself a blast cone.
And a lot of this Sejuani rework, as kind of see the Devour used in the bot side, but a lot of the Sejuani rework is around damage. Tankiness in general is down, but big story is the damage, especially when you start ranking up the points in the E, around, say, level 11, 12, 13, and also the fact that Q has double base damage are the relevant points here. Both of them are Aftershock jungles. The skirmish advantage should be there for the Aatrox early, but for now, at least the Sejuani, just like with the Lee Sin, Clid's happy to power farm it out.
Well, Linderung does have heroic entrance available to him here, but Khan flashes over, gets himself into his ultimate, but it's not enough. They take that first blood oh so easily, and the teleport, you can't escape those ones anymore. Faker has to get out of there, doesn't use the flash, thought he might have had to. Decimating smash, Grace wants more, goes in when he probably didn't want to, gets a double taunt, but he'll still probably go down. There we go, Faker gets the corrosive charge, but that was honestly a mistake from Grace.
Yeah, Clid and Faker so smart to orb walk back. They expected the Q to be charged by the Scion, they sidestep it, and that means Galio's in no man's land bot lane.
Okay. Root's just going to get exhausted, and that means that SKT are going to be more than fine. No mana on Teddy, so those piercing arrows not going to be there. However, still winning out on these trades very nicely here as the Tahm Kench Varus.
They can push forward brazenly. They know Aatrox was topside, and that's when you start greeting for as much turret damage as possible for those future turret plates to be cashed in. One cashed in by the Scion, one cashed in by the Varus in the bot side, but more on the menu, especially in this duo lane.
Yep, and also not able to get any control around here as we check out this top lane exchange once again.
Tahm plays this really well. He baits the Scion to ult towards the right side edge of his Realm Warp and then flashes to the other side to at least open up space. But the beginning, the fact that before that play, he hadn't been called to disengage is the more surprising thing. You have to fully commit to these teleports. You have to be more direct and bold about your positioning and the setup for turret dives because you know the TPs are going to be guaranteed. Very nice sidestep back from Faker, makes it a 1-for-1, but definitely some stuff to VOD review for both sides in that turret dive.
Yeah, and actually going back to it, I think I was a bit mean to Grace because if that Decimating Smash had landed, that would have been almost an instant double kill and starting the game with 3-0. So going for a play like that, I can certainly understand. You know, almost put it in the bag at that point. Very even, though, in the mid lane.
Here we go again.
I think I've seen this one before, Papa Smithy. Rune Prison is down. Khan gets out of the way of that one very, very easily. Heroic Entrance is a little bit late, but Decimating Smash, just the tip. Picks up the kill on the rise for the second time, and Khan is being bullied so far this series.
Exactly. It happens in the YouTube videos, happening on the Rift as well. And this time, the dives aren't going as astray as they did in game number 1. And remember, when we finally saw the AoE Wombo combo, they were 10,000 gold behind, and yet it worked to a point. So we know that if they're finding some gold parity, maybe this Wombo combo might cause a lot more headaches for SK Telecom T1 in game number 2.
Well, they are going to pick up the first Drake, so that's still good news, but they are behind in gold for the first time since hitting the Rift in 2019 on the LCK stage. And I think the change in Grace, I mean, you were going to give him the Lava Award, I remember, but then Kesper Cup happened and he didn't play all that well and sort of rescinded that award, but has been playing very proactively. The change between Grace and Chungo so far this game has been night and day.
Just looks a bit more ready on the stage. Speaking of ready, we're seeing the junglers here both for counter ganks and proactive ganks respectively. Now this Hero's Entrance is on cooldown for now, but Clid knows he wants to provide coverage because Teddy, he's just pushing up and getting as much turret damage as possible onto Jin Air's bot lane turret.
Yeah, Clid being very patient, waiting for that vision to be guaranteed. You can't see that passive be thrown over, even though we did, as there's the engage. Malrong's here, but it's a 3v3. Teddy flashes out of the way beautifully, but in goes Root. I don't know whether it's the idea they wanted, because Mata still had the Devour available. It was all a bait. It was all a cunning ruse, and SKT, they win it in the bottom lane.
SKT had the information advantage. They were the ones watching on, and the big engage from Jin Air was ripe to be punished by Clid. The use of the Glacial Prison onto the Rakan is perfect, because remember, it's cleanse onto Root. There's no cleanse and very low base stats onto this Rakan. They kill him first, they trade up. Nice stuff by SKT's trio.
Absolutely beautifully done. Linderung greeting a little bit for these turret platings. Clid making his way up there as well. Doesn't have flash to get in here, but maybe the Arctic Assault will be able to help out trying to grab at least a flash from Linderung. Not actually available just yet, so an opportunity. Khan just happily farming things out. 5 turret plates to 2 though on the top side. Certainly is a topsy-turvy situation as you look at the map here, but in favor of SKT because Get Behind Teddy is online.
Turret diving, the squishy rise, the most reliable thing to do for Jeanette. Now they're trying someone less squishy.
Yep, Justice Punch into the disdain, but it's not going to work this time, Fake. Oh! Mata has him in his belly, but even through the Ignite is still going to survive. I'm not sure how that happened, but Faker walks away.
Basically an entire team collapse, and they still can't take down Faker. Very nice movement from Mata. Needed to be ahead of that play to be there in the right time. He comes in, the gank isn't pulled off, and Jin Air exit. Very frustrating.
Yeah, I would have thought that that Ignite was actually going to be able to do it, but I think it ticked out right as he got in the belly of the Tahm Kench, so is able to actually survive. Man, so close, but no cigar here for Jin Air. At least making this game look a little bit more competitive, especially when you see towards the top side. Noticing that they can actually make dives work as well is certainly good news.
But every time a 3, 4, 5-man dive doesn't work, you look over the gold lead and it gets bigger. for SKT.
Yeah.
Remember when we had Galio Camille be the dominant meta comp, we were like, damn, isn't this strong? You're always going to get in there. That part is true. But we also would fall back and say the other side of the coin is those ults are on cooldown. Well, your team doesn't do very much. If you waste all that time, you give up gold, and that's why Jin Air need to continue to make plays like this to keep themselves competitive and not fall behind for that wombo to misfire in the future.
Well, we're going to get first turret blood going over to SKT, most likely here as they pick it up on the bottom side. Wow, it was very, very close.
Only 100 gold was removed from the first turret blood, so it's not quite as big a bounty of gold, but the turret plates are coming in the mid lane here. So overall, turret plates are to the benefit of SKT and that extra 100 gold over the side of Jin Air. But SKT, they're already contesting this red side jungle and forcing Kai'Sa and Rakan to be super deepest. All right, Kellen, enjoy your red buff.
Well, he's going to have a little bit more sustain options now, can harass a little bit more effectively. They just didn't want to give it over to Teddy, which I could certainly understand.
Sidewaves being down suits SKT because it always suits the comp that has the Tahm Kench.
Yes.
If you have Tahm Kench and you have a one item power spike 80 carry, which definitely Blade the Ruin King falls into that. We don't have crit carries yet. You get to go mid lane with Varus and Tahm Kench, and then you basically have global presence like your Galio. You can go get in there and influence top and bot side with CC coming through from the Abyssal Voyage into the Chains of Corruption from the Varus. So this is the ideal lane assignment for the side of SKT because Varus wave clearing happily and Tahm Kench can help with jungling and rotations. Meanwhile, for Jin Air, it's not a disaster, but they don't have the same counter rotation options as cleanly with their duo lane that are available to SKT.
Yeah, and looking at Linderung as well, he's faced with the same problem as before, with the fact that he has to build magic resist to start this one off. It means that Teddy's going to be able to slice through him a little bit easier. Now going to be able to build towards some armor.
And the problem for Jin Air is, where does Kellen go? Like, how do you position as a Rakan? You can't be Tahm Kench behind your carry. You don't have lane strong enough to be looking for turret dives anymore, so diving the rise is impossible. So you really lose out on experience, and your positioning on the map as a very young support. Remember, this is second LCK game ever. Not falling kind of criminally behind in experience when the lane assignments are a bit fuzzy like this for the Rakan is actually something that's quite tricky and quite heads up to try to get over.
One of those young players that's phenomenally good at solo queue. Currently rank 18 at the moment, I believe. I was checking last night, but I may have experienced a bit of a shift with our LCK players not able to play as much solo
We'll
queue.
be talking about a lot more solo queue in Series 2 because W1D1 Gaming is still right up there as a 5-man squad. Let's talk about the Infernal Drake because, you know, the ults are available. SKT kind of has to fight for it. Seems like fireworks coming.
Yeah, can he actually survive this is the question. There's just too much CC. He was trying to go left, trying to go right, couldn't do anything, and then he's in the air and he's dead.
We should call Peter. That was some atrocities committed on the Piggy. That Piggy taken down. Very, very harsh stuff. But Sejuani dead means that the Infernal does go to Jin Air, and this time the Wombo comes off.
Yeah, this is like an episode of Pimp My Boar and then turned into one of those documentaries that's really, really sad about animal activists, and that is going to be Infernal Drake going over to Jin Air. So having your cake, eating it too is brilliant to get them back into this game.
Well, at least Jin Air are picking their battles smartly after game number 1, where a couple of bold choices really bit them back and the game was over much quickly after that. We still don't know if this will be a 26-minute game, but Jin Air have been able to pick up the Infernal. Works really well. With the team comp they have, a damaged jungler, the Galio and the Kai'Sa, the biggest benefactors. Outside of team fights that are forced by Jin Air that SKT have to respond to, I think that SKT win the map in the 3 lanes. It's all about the 1 lane for the side of Jin Air. So any more Infernals, a Baron fight, that's where this team comp can do things like this.
Yeah, let's have a look at Cleared in the Bouncy Castle once again.
I'm watching the CC bar.
Infernal Chains is also my favorite part because he tries to go left and right, gets bonked around, and then he's dead.
If you're a level 8 player, you definitely write an old chat. Come on, mate, 5 ults, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. That's just not fair. Fight me 1v1.
You needed 5 ults. Come back with 1 ult. What you got?
And then the smart answer is, well, you're 2. So we'll come back with 2. Thank you very much.
You got the kill goal. That's what you got, turns out.
Oh, Root actually grabbing that kill as well is very important.
But SKT, again, this is very much the quiet moments, and Jin Air are all about the loud moments. Almost like an action film versus kind of Eternal Sunshine and Spotless Mind. If I'm going to compare these two, we'll say Die Hard versus Eternal Sunshine is this particular game. Because
both masterpieces.
Just so we know. Okay, agree. And it's all about actually forcing SKT to be front row for diehard. That's what Jin Air need. They need them to actually be opting in to these fights. Meanwhile, SKT say, smart wards, we can put down aggressive wards. We have Tom Kench Devour to stop you from just picking the person that's putting the vision down. These are the quiet moments where SKT are trying to dot their I's and cross their T's for their game plan, much like game one, to wait for the right moment. Jin Air is starting to get a bit frenetic. They're starting to lose their patience. And if they lose their patience in a big way, they may never actually be able to win those Wombo team fights.
I think it's actually better, though, for Jin Air to actually pull some triggers, to actually press some buttons, because that's what this composition relies on.
All right, choose one, and I'll make it happen. Which button? Rakan ult, I think it's coming soon.
Okay, good. Quickness. Let's press that.
All right, quickness within the next minute.
And we need a heroic entrance as well.
Oh,
I want that
I can't
button.
promise that.
No, I want that button.
One or the other.
I think Grace can be relied on. Chongo, no. He wasn't pressing that button until it was a little bit too late. But Grace, he's been getting in there, even if it is too late, he's just pressing it.
And the timers go running on this. Rakan has flash, so we know all about the engage range. Watching the lanes, though, you can see that Galio isn't actually in ult range of anyone yet. Maybe Kellen if he goes high enough, which is not going to be relevant there when it comes to this mid lane position. So it's a bit fallback for Jin Air. It seems like they're kind of licking their wounds, accepting their victories, and working out the next fight spot. 20-minute Baron. Got to say their Baron speed's not fantastic. Aatrox and Kai'Sa can do a decent job, but they're not going to have, say, a Cassiopeia or something to really abuse that. But Linderung's in the mid lane, but close to that 1 minute I gave you on a quickness Atlas, and Callan's really thinking about it.
He's real keen, but it's a good backup here from SKT.
Lane ward is really nice here.
Yeah, really smart.
Doesn't seem like it's scouted out by Jin Air, so Linderung unable to get in. He's going to be spotted there, and the Rift Herald still has about a minute before it despawns, and it's another way to try to force and see if SKT will walk up for a fight.
At the moment, Jin Air do have a lot of damage, so they can take this one relatively quickly. Grace is around as well, and SKT not wanting to put their faces in it to just give this one up. So Shelly over to Jin Air. Faker pushing on the bottom side is what they get for it, but Linderung's even able to get down and picks up the cannon creep. Jin Air very maneuverable with this composition.
It's kind of reminded me of, I believe, KT Gen G in the semifinals of Kesper Cup, which was very similar to this, where it was one team needs to 5v5, the other team needs to play 3 lanes.
Yeah.
SKT sticking to their guns, sticking to playing 3 lanes. Faker will get some chip damage on an inner turret. They know this game for now is being won when they keep this map very wide. They're still in a comfortable gold lead, and yet control wards come down on Baron, and that's when the communication that we said is probably going to be the most interesting thing to judge with all these superstar names on SKT. What do you do when the enemy has 2 control wards around the Baron? How far can you walk? How many minions do you give up? How many turret shots can you take? These are where SKT are a bit more of an evolving book that we're looking forward to judge.
Yeah, I'm also excited about the onus being a little bit more on Mata here this game, apart from Teddy being able to just take care of himself with his Arcane Shift on the Ezreal. This time around, if Teddy's going to be aggressive, he needs Mata there alongside of his Malrung. Demonstrates exactly what that means. The amount of damage available is just ludicrous as Linderung just turns up. There's not a lot he can do. Oh man, picks the flash! Does Clit from the offside. Not able to get that kill, but that is 2 very low health bars, and that should mean the turret.
Teddy was just free hitting with already 2 items complete on this Varus. It's a Vayne build you see more commonly now, but it's an old favorite on the Varus, and it chunks people down. So Jin Air had no coordination around their Wombo. That's when all your buttons aren't pressed at the same time. SKT can fall back, they won in the group, and they win across the map. And that means that SKT, out of nowhere, you blink, and it's almost a 4,000 gold lead.
Yeah, just ridiculous. This is the thing that can happen if you let these objectives just get away from you. And this is what a game where, like you say, playing 3 lanes versus just playing for the 5v5, it's way more flashy if you win and playing for 5v5. This is the kind of game where you win, and the opponent's like, oh, but wait, we haven't lost a fight yet. So how can we? And then they've lost. And
it's the kind of duality of solo queue and competitive play. Is if you play a 3-lane comp in solo queue, somebody dies, you don't have voice comms, you have lots of incomplete information, people get picked and die. I was split pushing, why didn't you guys back off, is what everyone writes then deletes when it comes to their team chat. In pro play, the 3-lane play is much more reliable because you have so much intel on where the last person was sawn, where all the parts of the initiation jigsaw were, and thus the threat range expected in the next X seconds, that you're very unlikely to be surprised by a Wombo engage, and thus, more often than not, SKT are backing away, getting side lane advantages, and the execution that we need to see needs to be on the side of Jin Air, and a half-hearted charge on the Rift Herald is not that execution.
No, only down to half health is that mid-outer turret. And I think what makes these compositions work incredibly well is if you've got someone that can get wards in exactly the right positions in order to stop there from being these engagers on the 3 members that are trying to farm things out in the mid lane, which is often the way with this 1-3-1 style composition that we've got from SKT. And Marta has had all the lane wards in the right positions. All of these SKT members are being directed by this vision god, who's now piloting the Tahm Kench.
And we're very unlikely to see the piggy in the middle situation just comboing down one person. From now on, SKT, if they're walking up to threat range of Jin Air, will be grouped. And what you need to draw attention to, Atlas, is there threat on Teddy or is there not? Because if they wombo down some tanks and Teddy's free hitting, Jin Air probably loses that fight. So the execution gets more and more narrow, and we already mentioned that there's many scenarios that SKT went out on. Jin Air need to find that one scenario where the Varus dies.
And they need to do it before they just passively lose the game as well, because Fake is going to take another turret, demonstrating exactly what we're talking about. This is a war of attrition they have to deal with.
The vision line moves further and further forward, and the wombo gets harder and harder to execute. It's not quite all your camps being stolen away levels of strangulation, as we used to talk about in the meta, where you can't even pick up the Raptors, so you're falling behind in gold further and further. But in the game state as it is, where there's so much gold in the game early that the mid-game is so often, I've got so many items that people die faster than you'd expect. Baron dies faster, turrets die faster. Yes, there is comeback gold. There are things like the bounties we're seeing, but bounties don't get cashed in that often. As we can see, in fact, Rise amusingly has a 700 gold bounty, despite being 0-2 and 0 and 3 CS up, just because of average CS numbers and also just how much gold SKT globally have got into their carries.
Yeah, he's still behind in gold, but has a 700 bounty. That's really weird.
That's all about averages, the law of averages in the world.
And team averages as well, I guess, is going to be the change, and that means that Jin Air do have ways of getting back if they can take someone down. They've shown that they can kill Khan this game a couple of times. You can see that on the scoreboard. However, if they can do it again is going to be the question.
One of those things where Jin Air know, someone in the comms is saying, if we just get the fight, we're going to get 3 different bounties. We can take Baron off the back of it. Varus dies, we can get so much from this. It'll be maybe a 7,000-8,000 gold swing. We won't see those swings often, but they will be explosive when they happen. Problem is for Jin Air, SKT know that as well, so they're going to be even more on point when not walking up and allowing there to be any sort of wombo.
And they have all the information. They've got vision absolutely everywhere. Able to get... There's no surprises if SKT so far, as another back comes in for Teddy. He's got that Hurricane. He's now an AoE threat monster on this Varus. Once that Rage Blade gets charged up, will be just incredibly deadly if he can get these auto attacks off. But the question is whether he can, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because what do? Do you focus smarter to make sure that the Devourer is not available to kill Teddy afterwards, or do you try and get SKT in a position where you can single out Teddy and CC Marta and then win the fight from there?
So the team fight that Jin Air wins, what does it look like? It's basically the question you're getting to. What it looks like is Teddy is under enough threat that either he's zoned by one person or he's in Devour and not free autoing. If he's stacking up his Rage Blade and his Hurricane, they've lost the fight. But threat onto him, maybe Aatrox just run. If Aatrox zones away Varus, Jin Air win the fight. So it's all about threat. And speaking of threat,
Linderung, few auto attacks there, but Teddy playing pretty safely. Faker in trouble. There's the Unstoppable Onslaught. Gets exhausted. Gets at least one knock-up, but we're trading ultimates everywhere. Grace does get one knock-up. Devour now on cooldown. That is super important as Faker might die. Winds of War going to be enough, augmented by Root's damage as Grace goes golden. This might be the fight that Jin Air were looking for. Teddy now has nowhere to go. In goes Root. Dives forward with the killer instinct, and it's named exactly right in this fight, as Jin Air walk away with all 5 members but some low health bars.
And Faker and SKT got impatient. They tried to overforce against a team comp that was made to force. They were winning in the side lanes instead. They get a bit too ambitious. We'll see what it means for the Inferno, as the health bars are not the highest on the side of Jin Air, but that was the exact prototype of a fight that Jin Air could win.
And Grace is taking the Ignite this game, and I think this is the point where it did kind of bite them, because he could have gone back, could have got the teleport to get back in there. So we're going to check out this replay, Papa, and you can explain to us exactly what went wrong for SKT.
Jin Air need to have threat on Varus, and then the Kai'Sa can just free auto, because they don't have the same backline access on SKT's comp. The moment that Faker goes in, he misses his ult, he's out of the fight. Grand entrance and Hero's entrance mean that Teddy is doing no damage. He charges his Q. By the time he gets in any autos, Urgot is already dead. Teddy cannot do damage because so many cooldowns were misused by first Faker getting in there and then Teddy needing to kite back. So that's what you do. You use every single cooldown you have to force the Varus away. Ginsu's Rage was never stacked in that fight, and that is why SKT lost it.
Yeah, Root was doing the same thing, but the fact that he can just dive into the perfect position when he feels like he needs to, and Malrong does have his ultimate to buy as much time as he can. Linderung is basically unkillable at this stage.
Again, consider Jin Air's champs. Malrong has many dashes to try to flash on top of Teddy. The Grand Entrance can get onto Teddy. The Hero's Entrance get onto Teddy. Try to make that same point about SKT, and you can't. They don't have champions that can have backline access onto a Kai'Sa who has cleanse and ult to reposition. That's why we're focused on Teddy's position. Not just that Teddy has a lot of gold and does a lot of damage. It's the inherent difference of the comps and the champions, the Varus versus the Kai'Sa, that means if Jin Air have a plan for Teddy, they actually have a plan that should show a lot of threat onto SKT's fight.
Yeah, absolutely right. But if SKT can find themselves in a position where they can take control of the map, their ability to control small skirmishes is certainly much higher.
Need the Fear Beyond Death. Fear Beyond Death is so killer in these 5v5s, just like it was in game number 1, because we already talked about how the fight's supposed to work, right? People skipping past other people to get to Teddy. What if they're all feared in an AoE for 3 seconds? Then Teddy's free hitting, then they're dead. So the fact that Faker missed his ultimate there was actually very consequential. I guarantee if SKT get the Urgot ult off successfully, they will win a 5v5, but they're on Baron, and it's damn low.
Yeah, it's down to 2,000 health already. That one is definitely going to be taken here by SKT, but can they win the fight now? Realm Warp gets 3 of them out. Faker not going to survive, but they'll take 1 sacrificial lamb and a Baron any day of the week.
Oh, Jin Air were too respectful. They had been engaged on and won the fight, but this time SKT just take the Baron, and Jin Air are 20 seconds, 15 seconds, 10 seconds too late in scouting it out. Faker dies again, but his summoner was already on cooldown, so you don't get too much benefit from that particular pick. And the Baron picked up by SKT, a bit of a highway robber.
Yeah, just ridiculous. And this was when Jin Air had won their first fight. They figured it out. They're feeling good, and now really, really worried. Let's have a look at this one again, just right from under the Jin Air's noses.
And that's the sins of the past, Atlas, because the map control is what SKT had taken for the majority of the first 20 minutes of this game. And then this was a little hiccup in vision. They lost vision around an area. They thought, okay, this is not going to be relevant vision for now, and it gets punished. So really nicely done by SKT to capitalize on a strong early game where they were really setting the pace of the game.
Yeah, they were very, very close from getting that quickness onto Khan and canceling that one out, though. So unlucky there for Jin Air. Could have been way worse for SKT. However, seem to have just stolen everything. BF Sword now done for Teddy alongside a Vampiric Scepter. That could be the double lifesteal Bloodthirster build to try and make Teddy even more durable in these fights if he's free hitting.
I think it's a really important turn of phrase to actually focus on, stolen everything, because now the 3-lane team has Baron. They're pretty annoying to deal with, and Khan takes a while to die.
Yep, and you've also got an Abyssal Voyage to have everyone there to take care of him if he does get into trouble. Yep. This time around, he's not getting bullied. He has his own friends. He called his cousins on them this time, and he is going to be able to get out of there alive.
And there's no cousins for Jin Air to call. There's no way to force SKT to group
they
unless
used all
SKT,
their cousins in the early game.
Unless SKT decides to group, SKT cannot be forced to group while Baron is being worn for the next minute 30. The worst parts of Jin Air's draft and the best parts of SKT's draft are accentuated, and turret damage is going to be on the menu.
Yep, now they're all just moving around as a unit, trying to work out which of these threats they need to answer. Of course, talking about Jin Air, Grace at least does have a lot of wave clear. Malrong there just to help him out, but he's losing his camps. Faker's now just having the best time ever, cleaning out the popcorn chickens just fine on this Urgot. And it's going from bad to worse. Well, good to bad to worse for Jin Air.
A cavalcade of emotions, you might
It
say.
is certainly a
Would you say it's
roller
going from glad to sad?
Oh, yeah, I am. JPEG.
Well, the JPEG isn't posted yet, but the next 45 seconds is more stemming the bleeding. The gold lead's not 10,000, so maybe there's still that wombo or that teamfight misexecution that will count against SKT. They return to the turret, the demolish proc. Mata is in the right spot here. He'd love to demolish, but safety first, being there to evacuate with a flash devour is more important.
I find it so funny that we've almost got Khan up to 1,000 gold bounty at 0-2-0.
Yep. This is the new future. This is Lol Park. This is 2019.
Well, Gargoyle Stoneplate is trying to keep Linderung alive. He's got a lot of shields, but this tower doesn't. Khan is just auto-attacking it to death as the Rise. Teddy alongside him. And they're just going to take them all over the map. They've already broken open the base. They take an inner turret there as well. And now Jin Air going for the desperation engage. Linderung getting his way forward. The Galio delivery system just isn't good enough because Teddy, as soon as he gets a few auto attacks off, they're dead. Yes, you managed to get your buttons pushed in the right positions, but you need to survive as Mata's just able to emote spam before Grace is even dead. Finally, they get some relevant damage on him, but that's after the whole team has bitten the dust.
Sometimes you got to do it all yourself. Teddy says, not going to worry about enemy position. I'm just going to assassinate the enemy AD carry. He solo kills Root, and that will be the end of the game.
Yep, that is all she wrote. As Teddy just flashing for the fun of it. Linderung on his turret fountain is going to survive for the moment, so you can have that small win, my friend, but SKT will take the 2-0.
It turns out you can take the Teddy out of Jin Air and find some good results for SK Telecom T1. He was able to decide this game in the final fight by assassinating the enemy AD carry. Definitely some hiccups along the way for SKT, especially in game number 2. But in our big first series, the first series of 90 in Lol Park, we will see SK Telecom T1 and the Dream Team take down Jin Air 2-0 and leave the SKT fan group largely content.
Yes, I'd say largely content. I think game number 2, Jin Air showed a whole lot more promise. I liked the composition. I feel like if it was more evenly matched as far as our teams, SKT would have had an even harder time of making that composition work because a lot of other teams might have been a little bit more forceful. The mechanics might have been a little bit higher there in order to deny this. But congratulations to SKT.
First time to give the fans a bow after a regular season game. No booths, new Lol Park, new look SKT, and a 2-0 victory. As I'm hopefully we get to hear some of the players here to pick their brains on what ended up being a pretty quick one. An hour 45 here for our 2-0 guys. We will still have fixed start times, and we have a great second match as Damwon Gaming will play Gen G at 8 p.m. Korean Standard Time after about an hour 15 break. We've definitely got some more show for you before we take that break, but filling in all the information as SKT pick up their peripherals and exit Lol Park for the first time with a smile.
Yeah, I'm wondering about who is going to be the MVP for this one as well. I mean, I feel like Teddy is a relatively obvious choice, but Mata had great positioning. His Abyssal Voyages were fantastic. Somehow Khan got to 1,000 gold bounty on Rise that was 0-2-0, which I think also needs to be recognized. There's a lot of strong plays, but more as a team here for SKT in game number 2, as opposed to Lee Sin styling all over Jin Air in game 1.
Picking up all these nice camera shots here as Coach Han probably just trying to interface early with the players, let them understand that obviously they came into this game pretty big underdogs. A lot of players here who have little LCK experience or dated LCK experience, not a lot of household names onto the side of Jin Air. They weren't embarrassed in their first series, but they definitely have some work to go on, and I'm interested to see, are they sticking with the hard engage wombo comp because they don't have an extended bench, or because that was the comp that worked best? Because after one series, look, you tried it twice, it worked at points, it didn't work at others. We're going to see a breadth of strategies from Jin Air in the future if they're going to be competitive in LCK Spring 2019.
Yeah, and I find it interesting because there are sort of two schools of thought here. It's if you're the onus is on you to make the proactive play, that can be more difficult in high pressure situations. However, it's also theoretically easier to do. That sort of play style is an easier one. Press all of your R buttons at the same time. You can coordinate that a little bit.
I would have agreed with you years ago. Remember when Ken and Vlad, it was like the comp and press R and run at people. The problem now is Riot has made it so if you have an AoE ult, you're probably not doing much in the laning phase. You don't have a lot of lane strength. You're probably being counterpicked, and thus your utility is at the cost of lane presence. So you can't really use those ults in the lane you're in. You need it to be a 5v5, and with Vision and with the game played at the level it is, you have to make the 5v5 wombo work, otherwise almost every other scenario counts against you. There were some good points for Jin Air, we should mention, and Khan The Rise deaths, they happen quite a lot, as we've come to learn. But the counter game, the fact that they got the 1-for-1 after the non-face check on the Decimating Smash, after that, things got good, apart from one Faker misplay on a 5v5.
This wasn't a misplay from Mata, though. Right there at the nick of time to pick up Faker and save him from what looked like certain demise. I'd certainly already called his death at that point in time. This is the bouncy castle that Jin Air are certainly capable of in this composition. We saw it work about a couple of times. This is another one of those examples, and we are really showcasing the fact that Jin Air were in this game.
This was a lot about misexecution, though. Like, there was no actual impetus for Faker to make that aggressive Righteous Glory shuffle in play. Seemed like that was just a call. They thought there was a kill to be gotten that seemed too greedy. So I think in hindsight, that's the biggest VOD review for SKT, as the communications did fall apart on that engage. Jin Air were not able to punish them to the degree that another team might have. If their early game was flawless, they might have been able to. But that's the only big misfire, I would say, of SKT in the 2 games. After that point, watch Teddy here, who just kills Root, and then the team comp from Jin Air does very little.
Yeah. And this was what we were talking about as well, is do you focus Mata, do you focus Teddy? And that's what happens if you focus Mata. Teddy just murders you.
Let the record show, I said definitely focus Teddy. The dabs will end this particular replay. Mata, he's rank 1. He gets to have some big words, both on the Rift and also in solo queue. The numbers not so high, but a lot of team effort on the side of Jin Air. Meanwhile, Teddy, he did various things.
Yeah. Looking over at the Jin Air graph, it looks normal. You know, it looks like this regular graph that we have.
How many Jin Airs equals
Teddy
a
makes
Teddy?
it look weird.
This has always been a perennial question for Teddy fans. Turns out quite a few Jin Airs equal a Teddy.
Yeah, if you add them all together, you only barely surpass Teddy by himself.
They got, what, 33,000?
Yeah,
Teddy's
like
got
that.
25. That's like 65% of the entire team.
So yeah, if this was, you know, one of those Jin Air games where we're looking at Teddy's damage and how much of it is Teddy, well, we'd be saying yes, he's most of Jin Air, but now he's looking like most of SKT.
Well, let's share the MVP with you, and it's going to be your boy Teddy.
Surprise, surprise, 83%, but that's because he did most of his killing towards the end of that game. Low kills in the early stage.
Last year, SKT fans had to call 911. This year, they know 411 is good enough for them. That's the number to call if you need a Teddy hard carry. 83% kill participation. First of many MVPs for Teddy, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm also very happy that he has that very nonchalant look on his face, because that was what we were seeing from Teddy almost the entire season prior to this in the LCK on Jin Air. Even in the wins, he was like, yeah, well, that's what we should be doing every